Listings are staying on the market longer, and we're seeing the need for price reductions. Today I'm going to give you 7 talking points that'll help you get that price reduction you know you need. All right, in many areas of the country, we're seeing a more normalization as far as the number of days on market for a listing. And what happens a lot of times is when we have a market where the price appreciation is either flat or pulling back slightly, or even in some cases moving up just slightly. In order to get a house sold, what happens is we need to get the price adjusted to a place where there is perceived value. So what I want to do today is I want to talk about kind of the marketing of this, the communication of this, and being able to not just tell the seller, hey, we probably need a price reduction because it hasn't sold. Give them the reasons why they need the price reduction if they're serious about getting their home sold in the next little bit. Here's what we want to talk about is really the old days of the 3 P's of marketing for listings is over. You know, it used to be that we would place it in the MLS, put a sign up, and then pray that somebody come along and buy that thing. What we want to do now is we're going to speak specifically to the opportunity that a price reduction gives us to remarket the property. It's not just about the price reduction. It's about launching that price reduction. So as we go into these, think about selling this from a standpoint of understanding on how you're going to relaunch this listing. What is it that you're going to do on social media? What is it you're going to do to your database with an email? What is it you're going to do with a mailer, possibly? Whatever it is, think about it from a standpoint that we're going to be communicating why there is the need for this, and then not only why there is a need to get this price reduction, but what we will be doing on the back side of this price reduction to help get the home sold faster. The first thing we need to do to make sure that we're prepared to get that price reduction and to be able to communicate it is to understand our numbers. Do you know what the average days on market is now versus what it was 3 months ago in your market? Do you know how many homes are on the market now versus how many were on the market a few months ago? Do you understand what the average list to price sale percentage has that changed and adjusted so that people can understand what's happening in the market? Can you pull up and see the last 5 sales in the neighborhood? Was there a price reduction, or were they priced at a place where they were able to sell quickly? This is an opportunity for us. When we start with a foundation of being able to communicate exactly what's happening in our market, ultimately, our job is to give our sellers the best information possible. And by doing that, we give them the opportunity to make the best decision possible for them and their family. Know your numbers, have that on lock, and that's the first step to getting that price reduction. The second and third step really involve being able to speak to the economics of getting the house sold. We want to speak first from the demand side. And so what is it that we can look at to be able to explain where we are as far as demand in the marketplace for a home to be sold? The first thing that we can look at is obviously the number of transactions, because the number of transactions tells us how many people are wanting to buy houses, how much demand there is to purchase houses. So we can take it and we can look at how many houses sold the first quarter of this year versus the first quarter of last year. Or maybe we can look and see how many houses sold this month versus the previous month. When we begin to understand where the demand is, I'll give you an example. I can look back and I can say that we're off 40% in our market transaction-wise in the first quarter versus where we were the previous year. So if that's the case, what I can do is I come in and I say, hey, in this area we sold 100 houses same time this past year, and then this year so far what we've seen in the exact same time period, we've sold 60 houses. We've got a 40% reduction in the number of houses that have sold. This speaks to the fact that our demand has gone down. Now that leads us right into the third step. When number 3 is that we're going to speak to the supply side. We're going to speak to what is it that we are competing with? How much supply is out there for this demand that we have? Because listen, if the demand goes down and the supply goes down, the market stays the same. But now where are we? Because in this market environment, what we're seeing in most places is that we're seeing supply go up. I'll give you an example. In our market, the peak of supply, or the bottom of supply for our market was actually back in the late part of February in 2022. We saw, I'm just going to use around 30A, in that time we saw 130 something houses that were currently for sale. That was the bottom, so to speak, where we only had 130 houses for sale at the end of February last year. Now here we are, we've got over 500 homes for sale along 30A. We've got a 375% roughly increase in the number of houses for sale. So now we come back and we say, so let me just speak to simple supply side and supply and demand when we're talking economics. When we're looking at selling your house right now, first we're going to look at the demand. We just talked about the fact fact that demand is down 40% from where it was last year. At the same time, the supply is up 375%. That tells us that we're in an environment that's completely different than we were last time. So that leads us into the next part, which is number 4, is we have to have perceived value by the buyers. So how does perceived value come? Because if we're going to have less transactions, the buyers that are out there are going to need to see something that they see as value. They're going to need to see that it is the exact property they want, or they're going to be willing to wait a little longer because there's more houses coming on the market. Or maybe they're at a place where they see the last sale was a certain price, and then they decide, well, if that was that price, then I want to buy it a little bit less. I want to see some value there. So what is it that you can do to communicate the perceived value? This is where, as we're talking to the sellers, we're obviously going through and we're explaining these things. Mr. Seller, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, can you see that obviously we have less houses? We have less houses selling right now, and we have more competition. Consequently, typically in simple economics, that means that prices go down when there's higher supply and less demand. We are in an environment that is, you need to know your numbers for your market, but we're in an environment where we're seeing pockets of our market that are off as much as 10 to 15%, some that are flat depending on the type of property, and then communicate what's happening in their local neighborhood. But by giving them the opportunity and just giving them the understanding, you're presenting the information in a way that gives them the opportunity to make the best decision. Now, after we've done the simple economics, now as we're talking to them about this, we also come back and we simply say, hey, listen, in this environment, obviously, when we're seeing an environment where the prices are flat to pulling back, the buyer needs to see perceived value because they know that there's more options out there for them. One of the best ways that we can show them that perceived value is a price reduction. Not only is this price reduction because it gives us the opportunity to get the price lower where it just becomes more attractive, it gives me the opportunity to begin a new marketing effort to relaunch this listing to everyone that has seen this house and to my database and to the open market in a full, new, fresh way. Also, what is it that those buyers are going to look for? They're going to look for premium properties that they have perceived value, and if we want to be that next sale, we need to position ourselves where they find perceived value in your home. The next step is be able to communicate that the next sale is probably going to be the highest price sale. Now, every market is different, every property is different, but as a general rule, what we see in an ascending market like we saw the last few years is that the last sale would set the floor, and then we would absolutely see the next one move the prices higher. So we could price a house basically where we were moving to where the prices were heading. So think of it this way, 2 years ago, if the last sale was $1 million, we were going to price it at $1,050,000 or somewhere in that range because we knew that the market was moving in that direction, and we wanted to make sure we were moving in the direction of where the prices were going. Now, here we are. Prices are flat to pulling back. In that environment, we need to, again, be pricing where the next price, where we anticipate the price is headed. If you're looking at this market environment and you're looking at all the things that are facing this market, and you're not realizing that prices are going to stay flat to possibly even pull back. Now, again, there are certain areas, premium properties are going to demand a premium. But they're in the overall, when we're in this environment where there's this much more supply and this much less demand, we're going to see prices pull back some. So being able to communicate to your sellers this, Mr. and Mrs. Sellers, in this environment, typically what we see is that the next sale will be the highest sale. We want to be that next sale. And what I mean by that is here's what happens. If there's 7 houses for sale in your neighborhood, for instance, and the next one sells for, let's just use this, $500,000. What's going to happen is when that new comparable sale comes out, all the people that are priced between $520,000 and $550,000, what they're going to do is uh-oh, that's the last sale. I need to be this next sale. And what are they going to do? They're not just going to reduce it to $500,000. To be that next sale and to give that perceived value, they're going to price it there or even a little bit less because they understand that in this environment where the puck is moving is possibly flat to down, they're going to get aggressive on getting that next sale. It begins to be this self-fulfilling prophecy in pricing going up as well as coming down. So what we're having now is that seller, if you got 7 of them, one of them really wants to sell. And they're willing to take a little haircut there to be able to be that next sale. So the next one then might sell for $495, might sell for $490. Guess what happens to the 6 that are still there? Uh-oh, I definitely want to be the next one to sell. I'm getting a little more pressure. I've got that transfer coming. I've got those things that are happening in my life. I want to be that next sale. So what do? They reduce their price to $490 or $495. Again, we're beginning to continuously see this self-fulfilling prophecy. Being able to communicate this to your sellers and saying, if our goal is to be the next sale, We need to be aggressive now, because if we aren't aggressive now, I'm afraid that we may have to be aggressive later. This is our opportunity to reduce our price to a place where there is that perceived value, and that as this market continues, because we don't know, we could see an increase again in this inventory going up, and the demand could even go down. We can't control what's happening in the micro environment. What we can control is what we do and how we react to it. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, if you want to be that next sale, we need to price it at a place where there's perceived value, and that could be at the last sale or even a little bit less than that last sale. The sixth step is to explain your job. Listen, ultimately, what they see and what they've heard in the past is they just think that the realtor are just there to just get a price reduction so they can get a quick sale. This is where we explain our job and talk about how what our profession is all about. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, ultimately my job is to give you the best information so that you can make the best decision for you. Based on this information, I want to give you exactly what we're seeing in the market. So here's what's happening on the demand side. Here's what's happening on the supply side. Here's what's happening as far as the next sale possibly being the highest sale. What is it that you would like to do as the last and final step? So ultimately, once we get to this point, the seventh step is this. Just simply ask them, based on this information, what would you guys like to do? Ultimately, this is your house. My job is to give you the information. My job is to give you to position you to make whatever it is as far as your goal is. If your goal is to maximize the price, I want to do everything in my power to maximize the price for you. If your goal is to be the next sale, my job is to give you the information so that we can position ourselves to be that next sale. Whatever it is, identifying their goals and then just simply asking them, based on this information, what would you guys like to do? That gives us the opportunity. Odds are what they're going to do is they're going to come back and say, what would you suggest? Now we're at a place where they're asking for your professional opinion. Have a professional opinion. Understand what it is. Based on the information and us wanting to be the next sale, my suggestion is that the last sale was at $500,000. We should price this at $495,000 to make sure that buyers have perceived value for your home. This will get us more activity. This will do this. Another thing that we like to say to people is in this environment where there's so much information, where we're going to blast this thing out to all the potential buyers in this price range. We're going to talk to other agents that have buyers in this price range. It is very difficult in this environment to underprice something. We can obviously overprice it, but the market is the market. And with all the information that is out there, if we price this at a place where there is perceived value, we could create a frenzy where buyers come in and out of emotion, they end up paying more than they would have otherwise. Our job is really to position themselves and give them the opportunity to make the best decision for themselves. Have a professional opinion. Give them the information. Let them make the decision, and ultimately, you're going to get not only the price reductions, but you're going to get the success you're looking for by providing the sellers the opportunity to get exactly what they want. And Zig Ziglar always says it this way: if you just help enough other people get what they want, you can have everything that you want. I hope this has been helpful, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks for watching the video. I specifically chose the video below for you because it builds on the one you just watched. I hope it's helpful, and I'll talk to you soon.